Now that the Jaguars have made these free agency moves, what will they do in the first round of the NFL draft? I'll give you my 2 cents on it and let you decide for yourself on this episode of Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, what's up, everybody? This your man Tony Wiggins here with the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen. I got to let you know that we're free to subscribe to on our YouTube page. Make sure you tap in on the YouTube page that is Locked On Jaguars. When you get there, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button also, and then hit the bell so you get notifications each and every time we drop an episode. Make sure wherever you listen to podcasts, when you're at work, in your car, whatever, make sure when you get there, you make sure that you listen to Locked On Jaguars every day and check in to make sure you don't miss an episode. Today's show, an episode, is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Shout out to the everydayers. One of those names, Chris, came up to me today in my workplace, and I told him, just like I tell everybody, you come up to me and tell me you're an everyday, I will mention your name on this podcast. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start looking at the draft a little bit and see if there's any more clarity in your mind of where the Jaguars will go. Now, I'm going to warn you. The second you think you know what they're going to do something else. But still, it's still an opportunity for us to at least have a little bit more of an informed discussion about it, because now some of their needs have been met in free agency, and they met them, right? They committed to them, whether you like the players or not. And I haven't found very many people that don't like the players that the Jaguars decided to go with, but I will tell you this. It's enough of a commitment, in my opinion, for us to start to come to a conclusion. Everybody knows I hate doing mock drafts. Like I do them as an exercise just to see where guys are going to fall, but I hate being team specific with it because, especially before free agency, mainly before free agency, because you do not know. You have no clue on what positions they're going to fill. Like all we saw for months was Jackson Powers Johnson, right? That's all we saw. Well, they got Mitch Morse. They paid him to come be a starter, and they still have Luke Fortner. Believe it or not, you still got people telling me they ought to go get JPJ. If they do that, I'll come back and tell y'all are omniscient and you're smart and all of that stuff. But I also call them crazy for doing that, because there can only be so many funds and resources, and my favorite word is allocation, that you allocate to a certain position, especially center. You go get JPJ in the first round right now. At this point, that means either he's going to start or Matt Morris is going to start. One or the other. The other one's going to be on the sideline. So you use the priority resources and money and free agency to go out and get someone, and you're going to put them on the bench. You're not that good enough to do that, or some teams are good enough to think about the future and think, okay, Morris is a one-year guy, to try to, almost the way they do quarterbacks, try to maybe ease us into Jackson Powers Johnson. But I don't subscribe to that sort of thinking with positions that aren't the quarterback spot. Maybe an offensive tackle. If you have an older offensive tackle, maybe an offensive tackle, and you can decide, okay, we're going to bridge him in. Maybe we'll play him at guard. And then the likelihood that one of those positions that he can play, because you can play left, you can play tackle, you can play left, right, and most of the time you can play guard. So that's 4 chances that somebody will get hurt. Generally, a center is going to be a center. So that would not make sense. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to talk to the main positions. We're going to factor in the fact in segment 3 that Brandon Aiyuk is still possibly being pursued by the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll get into that. Best player available in segment 2. We're going to really, really get into that, because I'm going to give you some scenarios where I give you an option and an opportunity to tell me what you would do in a certain situation. And we're going to decide whether we're going to go corner or pass rush, and then discuss the few scenarios where you don't do either one of them. So let's just get right into it. Let's not bury. All right. So the Jaguars had some needs coming into free agency. The positions that they needed were edge, cornerback, wide receiver, interior offensive line, interior defensive line, and center. Those are the main spots where we thought that they needed help, right? And sometimes in those positions, they actually needed multiple people in those spots. They signed 2 wide receivers and they lost one that they were hoping to bring back. So that means they really only added 1 numerically. So right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars have Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Parker Washington, and Devin Duvernay. That's five players. I'm sure if you told them that those are the 5 guys that they will go into the season with, they'd be cool with that, right? Even though they're trying to get Brandon Aiyuk. And what I think happens if they get Aiyuk is they likely move on from Zay Jones, and they keep Parker Washington as a young guy at the bottom of this thing. And or they restructure Zay and then tell Parker, hey, you try to make it as much as you can, force us to keep 6 wide receivers. Then with cornerback, they've added Ronald Darby, but that's a plus minus because they let Darius Williams go. And I know you guys know this that listen every day, but maybe there's somebody that hasn't kept up with every single thing, so I have to go through it. Interior offensive line, they retained both of their guards, and then they added Mitch Morse. That's a plus. That's a +1. I think they may need another one, but it's going to be a developmental player because when you look at their roster, they even if you don't include Tyler Shatley, they got Blake Hance, Cooper Hodges, the left tackle, Walker Little, forgive me, a little bit of a brain freeze there. So that's 8. Maybe one more. If you add Shatley, that's 9. But I kind of feel that they may move on from there. If you add one more, maybe he's a swing dude, or maybe it's just one of those dudes in the 3rd or 4th round that's too good of a value to pass up, and you just have him just in case you move up, in case you move on, right? There's a scenario where I still think they have a shot to move on, and I'm not going to call it a shot because that sounds like I'm pulling for it, but there's a chance that you might see them move on from Cam Robinson still, or try to trade Cam Robinson. Wide receiver, we already went through that. Corner. Edge, they haven't done anything with the edge. Right now they have 3. The 2 starters and Travon Walker and Josh Allen, who they need to work out a long-term extension, and then they have Yasir Abdullah. So they still have something. I keep seeing people saying they're going to bring back Caleb on, and I don't think they're going to do that. Interior defensive line, big signing. They brought back, of course, Ledbetter, but a big signing, a huge signing, is Eric Armstead, who's going to be the starter on that defensive line. Are they going to run a nose, 0 and a 1 with Devon Hamilton, or are they going to like 2-gap these dudes and spread them out a little bit? Because for a long time, they didn't have a real nose guard type in San Francisco. They just had 2 really good defensive tackles. In fact, Javon Hargrave is a pass rusher. So some teams get away from having that 0 or that guy who plays that 0 or that 1 that's lined up right on the center. We'll have to see what Ryan Nielsen has in store. So all of this leads us to this conclusion. It streamlines us to understand the needs of this team a little better and give us an idea of what they'll do in the draft. So here's what I'm going to propose to you. I'm going to go through some of the players and the positions, and I'm going to use 17, which is the pick they have. I'm going to act like they ain't got Brandon Aiyuk or they're not trading anything for him right now. So 17 and 48. All right. I'm going to go through those, and I'm going to point out some scenarios. And I'm going to use some guys in college who I'm going to use this example because we don't know how good guys are, right? So I'm going to use their college success. I'm going to ask you if you were looking at high school guys, and I told you these high school guys would have this effect in college. So I want you to pretend that we're saying these college guys are going to have this measure of success in the NFL. And I'm not going to use real NFL players, but I'll use college guys to make my point, because I think the unknown aspect of it is really something that we need to explore and pay attention to. And what would determine, is it best player available, or is it just your hunch about how good a player is, or is it that maybe you can get another guy in the second round? We're going to go through that and use the examples of some NFL guys, but mainly the college success that guys have had. We'll do that here on a Friday edition of Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k or retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this. Now listen, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with 3% match. That's right. No cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to the IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% match on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker dealer. We thank you for joining us here, segment 2 on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. Always thank you for making us your first listen. I always love giving you a second listen to pay attention to. As you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans, mark your calendars for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the best Major League season preview coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. On March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern, be the first to get local insight from the Major League Baseball local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Find it on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Okay, now let's get into it. Best player available, the positions, we've streamlined it. We're going to pretend the Jaguars didn't get Brandon Aiyuk at this point, right? And we'll talk about a scenario where they do. First, if they don't get Brandon Aiyuk and you're sitting there at 17, and let's just say for this exercise that the best player available at that point is a corner. Take your pick. Kool-Aid, Terrion Arnold, Nate Wiggins, Quinyon Mitchell. Doesn't matter. For this exercise, doesn't matter. Let's just say you have him, whoever that is, listed as your next best guy. And it's a need position, right? So we always say, just take the best player, the highest player on your board. I get it, but watch this. What if Jared Verse is sitting right behind him, right? And he's your next guy. And then you're going to fill out your team. So you look and you say, okay, we got to pick in 48. You have this board with all of these players on it, even some that you're not interested in, but you still have another board, so you'll have an idea who will fall to you. And you look down there at 48, and the corner at 48, because you need both spots, right? The corner at 48 and the edge at 48 are the following people. Max Melton out of Rutgers and Marshawn Nealon, right? Marshawn Nealon, real good player, by the way, Marshawn Nealon, but he's unknown. All right, to a lot of people. Not unknown to NFL scouts. They know exactly who they are. So here's the thing that I want you guys to go through in your mind. You can say just take the highest rated player at a need position. He's there taking. Boom. If I say take a corner, somebody's going to say, man, they need some more edge depth too, right? Right. So those are the two main positions. All right. Last time I checked, pick 17 and pick 48 are those are two selections. So those are two top 50 selections. So many people give you an opinion based on what they think the team needs most, that they forget that the draft does not end after the first pick in the first round. So looking at this, the way this is set up, do you take Terrion Arnold or Jared Verse? If you take the highest paid player in this scenario that I gave you, I'm not telling you that this is how they're going to be ranked. In this scenario, you take Terrion Arnold, right? If you just go best player available at need position. But if you think it through a little bit, you may ask yourself, is there a bigger difference and a bigger gap between Terrion Arnold and Max Melton than there is between Jared Verse and Marshawn Nealon? So the question is, in this situation, would you rather have Verse and Melton or Nealon and Arnold? The interesting part about that is this. These are actual decisions that people have to make. Do I take that now, or do I take what I can't get later, or I can't get anything close to that later, but I can get something a little bit closer to whoever it is at 17, in this case, Terrion Arnold? That's a big question that you have to ask yourself. My gut feeling tells me that you go for the best player, and that would be the corner at 17. To give you an idea, what if you're doing this from high school to college, right? And I'm gonna name some players, and then I want you to tell me which one you'd rather have. So let's just say I got Cam Newton and Ndamukong Suh, right? Lamar Jackson, Timmy Jernigan. All really good, great college players. So if I gave you a choice, if Cam Newton is number one and Ndamukong Suh is number two, and they both were the number one picks in the draft, and then at quarterback, let's just say you rank Lamar Jackson at number three, Timmy Jernigan at number four. Timmy Jernigan had a great career. He won a championship. Cam Newton won a championship, right? And Ndamukong Suh was whatever award they give away for the defensive player, that's what he was, right? And Lamar Jackson won the Heisman. So I had to name all four players. Now, this is like, what if you knew they were going to have the success that they had in college and you were building the team? And I'm going to give you an example of why it's real, real important to not just assume that they're going to take the best player on their board. Cam is the best guy. Had the better career out of all of those guys. You can argue Lamar, but that's the point of this. Would you rather have Cam Newton, and then I tell you got to take Timmy Jernigan, who was a first-round pick as well, and a very good college player. So you get the best player available, but now let's just assume that somebody else was picking against you, and they get the next two choices, and they take Suh and Lamar Jackson. Are you better by taking Cam Newton and getting Timmy Jernigan, who's a good player? And this is assuming that they're going to get a good player at 17 and a good player at 48. Or would you rather have Ndamukong Suh and Lamar Jackson, who's a notch below Cam Newton? That's what I'm saying here. And the reason why I use those examples is because Cam and Suh were both number one picks. The other two guys were both at the very end of the first round, ironically chosen by the same team, which is Baltimore, and they were both chosen at the end of the first round. So that's what we're doing here. We're going one round and a complete round to the other player. I would argue that there were a lot of people that would take the college version of Lamar Jackson and the college version of Ndamukong Suh over the combo of Cam Newton and Timmy Jernigan. That's just me. What would you do? What would you do? And maybe now you apply that to the NFL. What would you do? Would you take the dude you think is the best player out of all of them? Or would you take another guy who's close to him at a different position and then get a better player at that position that you passed up in the second round, he's going to be better than the edge guy that you could have taken in the second round? These are the things that you have to do. Sometimes you got to take the guy that plays the position. You need both, right? But sometimes you'll take a guy who might not be as good as the guy who's at the top of your board. But you take the edge guy now because you know you can't get anything close to it later. And I'm not saying Marshawn Nealon ain't going to be good. I think he is going to be good. But I don't think he's going to have the instant impact. And if he's in the second round, he could very well have the instant impact. But the likelihood changes because he's drafted lower. There's one thing that would – me, I'll just take the best player. I'll take the corner. and I'll deal with the edge rush situation when we get to it. I always just say, if it's a need position and the needs are even, just take the best player. And I think they need a corner a little bit more than they need a backup edge rusher. The corner's going to play right away. The edge rusher is going to be in a rotation. He's going to play, but he's not going to be a starter. Here's what I want you to do. What does the Brandon Aiyuk effect have to do with this situation? I'm going to give you an idea that if they sign Brandon Aiyuk, Zay Jones won't be the only one that might be getting out of here. They may create another need if they sign Brandon Aiyuk and they move on from a very expensive left tackle. It may create a situation where there's yet another need with only 2 picks in the first and second round. What position will they leave out? I'll tell you all of that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Gotta let y'all know about FanDuel, man. FanDuel is the absolute truth, and you guys know it. I'm sitting there watching college basketball right now, and these brackets are off the chain. So say goodbye to the busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Good luck with that one, right? Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. It's FanDuel.com/lockedon, all one word, LOCKEDON. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. We always thank you for making us your first listen. I'm going to give you another second listen option. That is, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts on Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. And you can find me doing a Fire podcast here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. I did a live. I don't know what day y'all are going to watch this, but I did a live talking about Eric Armstead, and the numbers went through the roof. And I appreciate y'all tuning in, man, and listening to what I have to say. I know we beef sometimes online, man. I know we go through it, but it's all good. 99.9% of the everydayers and people that interact with me are good people, man. I think the people that beef with me are good people. I just really think that sometimes I say stuff that they don't want to hear, and then it leads to people questioning my intent and all this stuff. And that's just some negativity I just don't think you or I need to be dealing with, right? But Brandon Aiyuk, rumor is there's some interest in Aiyuk's camp. The 49ers have basically gave him permission to seek a trade or whatever. I think they did. But the camps are good. What could be the holdup if they're going to make a deal? Well, one, I don't think the Jaguars get back in a Calvin Ridley situation, because Brandon Aiyuk is a free agent after this year. So what I believe is the Jaguars are saying, like, if we trade for you, you're going to get a long-term contract. I just turn around and give him maybe $1 million more than Calvin Ridley got. He got 4 years, 92, offer him 4 years, 93, right? That way you get a young 24-year-old receiver with long arms with a huge catch radius. He might be 25 to go along with the guys you have, and I think you get a true number one and a true versatile weapon. And to me, all due respect, I think he's better than Calvin Ridley. Doesn't mean that they didn't want Calvin Ridley. It does. I just think that this means because they didn't get him, and they don't want to really focus on that in the draft, because if they really want to keep adding to the position, and they can in the late third or fourth round, I keep talking about Javon Baker. He might end up being a Jacksonville Jaguar, right? That'll give them 2 UCF receivers to go along with Gabe Davis. But I'm sitting there thinking that the holdup is maybe they have to work that out, and then you have to work out the compensation. We discussed maybe it'd be a pick swap with some change included. 17 and 31, which if they do that, that tears up this whole scenario. But it doesn't really, because it kind of puts you in the same situation. But it does give you an opportunity to change your needs, because if they give him that type of money, I think they may have to move on for more than Zay Jones. I think they would probably also have to move on at that point from Cam Robinson. I don't think they're going to trade Cam Robinson to San Francisco because he has a big cap figure. And the other thing is Cam has only played left tackle. And I don't know if you know this, but they got a pretty good left tackle out there in San Francisco. So if he does get traded, it'll be to another team that may need an offensive lineman, and the Jaguars could then use that compensation and then use the cap space to make sure that they can get Aiyuk in. And then they would really, really be pressed to also get a deal done with Josh Allen, because that will reduce his cap number for the first year. So the reason why, if they get a receiver, then they may have to let go of an offensive lineman because it's just too much. You can't be paying everybody all this type of money, and you have to just make some very, very hard decisions. They could restructure Cam again and have him just hang out and give him some continuity for a couple of years, put another void year on the end of his deal, turn some of that salary into cash, and sort of push things out into the future a little bit. And that's fine too if they decide to do that. So you got the contract that may have to be worked out with him. You also have the compensation that has to be worked out. And then you got to figure out what you're going to do with everybody. So, but that could really, really cause things to change, because you may also lose if they don't want to pick swap. They may just say, give us the second round pick and then give us some change, or give us a second round pick. And maybe they ask for an extra tight end or something that we have that they don't. And all of a sudden now that may create another hole for the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? The bottom line is this: they need corners. They do need edge depth. They may need another tackle if they move with Cam. And they also may need a wide receiver if this thing with Brandon Aiyuk does not get done. So the bottom line is nobody knows what they're really going to do, including me. But I do say you can never go wrong when you take the best player available. And maybe they attack one of these positions with two. Maybe they draft two corners. It wouldn't stop. What would stop them from going and getting Mike? I think his name is Mike Sanristel. What about him and him in the third round, with Terry Arnold in the first round, or whoever, Quinyon Mitchell in the first? And now you're really, really putting a lot of competition. Even though the guy gets picked in the first round, he's going to start. But you're putting a lot of competition, putting a lot of youth into your secondary and your ability to cover, and you're really weaponizing your defense now that you've improved your front. All of these things are things to consider. Go through your mock draft. Go through the simulators where you can actually do trades. Do them with Brandon Aiyuk on the team and swap him with the 49ers. Just have some fun with it, and have some fun with the fact that the Jaguars at least have now. I really, really think they've really improved with Eric Armstead. I really do, even though he's coming off of a meniscus injury. I think he's going to be fine. All right, and you're going to be fine too, man, this weekend. Enjoy yourself. Take care of your family. It's a beautiful day here in North Florida. There's great golf, PGA Tour. The entire golf world is focused on the Players Championship. If you get a chance to go out, go have fun. Enjoy Jacksonville, Florida. It's going to be 80. What is it? It's 86 degrees right now, and it's March. So if you're listening to this and you're not here, I'm sorry. All right, you guys take care of each other, man, and make sure you don't miss an episode of Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you subscribe and check in every day wherever you get your podcast so you make sure you don't miss. We'll see y'all later.